Neil, I don't know if you've heard. I'm a bit worked up about this morning because this strikes me as the Huawei scenario that the United States was ringing all kinds of alarm bells about. You got to block China, no Chinese equipment. We got to protect our networks. Meanwhile, instead of coming up with data standards that apply to everyone, no matter where they're from, not just China, an American company apparently gets hacked by a nation state, presumably Russia, and here we are.
Yeah, it's not great. And I think the only way for people to really think about it is that this attack is still ongoing. It's not over. I think we're conditioned to think of hacks as data breaches where someone breaks in, everyone's personal data gets exposed, we all change our passwords and we move on. In this case, it is much more serious. The attackers are still inside of these systems. People are still trying to figure out exactly what systems were targeted, what companies, what organizations, which parts of the government were targeted, and what offensive capabilities remain inside of these systems, even though we now know the hack has happened. But with regards to Microsoft, go ahead.
This is just, it's like handing out a police sketch of the Hamburglar and saying, nobody let this guy into your network, instead of setting up an alarm system that protects against everyone. I mean, that's what we've been doing with China. That's my point.
Yes, exactly. And, if you look at Microsoft statement, they were affected, but they said that no customer data was exposed. They had no impact. Microsoft President Brad Smith put out a long blog post that was sharply critical of the government's approach to cybersecurity. He said the time for unilateralism is over. We need a global response to nation-state threats. Microsoft President Brad Smith is not a rash guy. He's a pretty calm and thoughtful person. And you see you see his blog post, you see what he wrote. He is calling it a time of reckoning, a moment of reckoning for the entire national security and cybersecurity apparatus. I think the Trump administration has really kind of dropped the ball here in being so focused on specific Chinese companies instead of the entire cybersecurity infrastructure of the United States.
So, Nilay, I tend to think that the U.S. intelligence agencies can be focused on both China and Russia. So if I were to play devil's advocate here, could one perhaps argue that this attack was so sophisticated that it was almost impossible to prepare for something like this? And this is simply the world that we're living in now, especially amid the pandemic. More and more is going on online. Data is more valuable than ever. So I just wonder, is this what's keeping security experts up at night, that anything we do may not be enough?
Yeah, this type of attack is a supply-side attack. So the bad actors went into a software update, and they infected the software update upstream of where people would install it. So that is a very sophisticated kind of attack. It is also the nightmare scenario. It is what cybersecurity experts, researchers have been warning about for years. So the fact that it happened, we should have been way more prepared to detect it, to mitigate it, to shut it down, and we weren't. And I think in this case, what we're seeing is a bunch of private companies are the ones who sounded the alarm, not the United States government. I think that speaks a lot to just how much we've outsourced of our national security capabilities, how much we've outsourced of the entire government, instead of having a holistic, uniform approach to cybersecurity.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.